90 days till we go to the polls. Now, here's something to think about whilst we ready ourselves. The National Democratic Congress, NDC, says it will create 1 million jobs within its first year of office. The party's flag bearer initially revealed they would create 1 million jobs in its tenure if voted into power through the $10 billion big push in infrastructure. The manifesto, however, states the party plans to hit this target in its first year alone through a myriad of programs. Here's former Deputy Finance Minister Mona Korte speaking to me on Prime Morning on Joy Prime Television.
The manifesto looks at. The first one is Ejumapa, which looks at bringing in 250,000 jobs every year of the 4 or 5 years that we are looking at. So with Ejumapa, it's targeted towards the $10 billion big push, and that's an infrastructure program. We're looking to put in all the infrastructure that will enable the economy to grow and be able to offer those jobs. So we'll speak to some of those jobs later. So that's 250,000 from the Ejumapa, which is coming on the tail of the $10 billion big push. The second area, which will be from the public sector, we are looking at moving the numbers there, which is currently about 650,000 to 1 million jobs in the public sector. I know that in the past we've all spoken about too many people being in the public sector. The salary is a big part of the budget. Wages and salaries are a big part of the budget. However, when we compare Ghana to many other similar countries, we find that the number of public workers to employed workers is very low. It's not at all as high as other countries, and I'll mention a few. We compared it to Kenya and to Botswana, Kenya was actually below at 2%, and Botswana was around 20%. Most other countries were above 10%. We at 5.8%. And Daniel, you mentioned something under your breath which is important. What is important is efficiency or productivity of the people that are there. So if we intend to increase it by another almost 350,000 to take it to 1 million, then we are looking at a situation where we are improving productivity. And we can do that because of the knowledge-based economy that we intend to bring in, riding on digitalization, riding on technology, and so.
Ms. Korte also said the $10 billion infrastructure plan will not add to the country's debt burden.
The 10 billion big push is something that we funded before. It is not new for us to do. We will do that through a lot of equity injection. You know, we will continue to push the public-private partnership, which we had already started, and we had some success with that. We'll enhance it, improve it, pass that law for sure, so that it can do more. I mean, for example, if you looked at what MPS did at the ports in building the road to the port, that was a public-private partnership, and it's opened up the port so much. The port was congested. Today we have the ability to go freely into the port. The Temamoto flyovers and all that was predicated on those new roads coming up. So government is a continuum, and for what we've done, the MPP has been able to build upon it. So we'll have private sector money coming in. We'll have the government itself being able to borrow in addition to what is there, but in a smart way, in order that those projects are projects that pay for themselves, and therefore they're almost self-financing projects. That is the key thing. Instead of having fragmented projects in every district, whether they apply or not, we will make sure that projects go into the places where they can be self-financing, and debt management continues to be smart, and therefore we stay within the ratios.
I see here that there will be no additional burden on the public debt.
Because so the projects will be self-financing. There will be borrowing, but the projects will be self-financing. Therefore, government will not have to necessarily guarantee some of these loans and put it on their balance sheet.
Now, also on Prime Morning today was Chief Executive of the Ghana Investments Promotion Center, Geoffrey Grant, who described the NDC manifesto as a wish list.
It's like somebody who wakes up in the morning and takes a piece of paper and says, okay, I'm going shopping today. Let me just write the things that I think I like. And just writes a long shopping list. I mean, I would have liked to see a plan I mean, so, okay, and I'll give you an alternative. First of all, this $10 billion push that they're saying, I mean, we've already started with the Ghana Cares program, which is $100 billion program, 30% of it will come from government. So we are very clear on how we are going to do
$100 billion or cedis?
Yes, 100 billion cedis, sorry. Yes, 100 billion cedis, of which 30% will come from government and 70% from investment in the private sector. So we have clearly focused on a plan. Now, on the growth of jobs, yes, I expect that any government that comes will keep adding jobs. There's never an infinite number of jobs created. And of all the things, in 3 years, we have created 2 million jobs, and we are going to do more with the CARES program. But we have a plan, and our plan was predicated on clear policies. Clear policies, planting for food and jobs, we knew exactly what to do. Planting for exports, new factories under the 1D, 1F, the new auto industry and the 10-point industrialization program, which clearly states certain focal areas in which Ghana is going to be a hub. And we can actually estimate how much jobs or how many jobs we can put in there. We've expanded education because of free SHS. We need more teachers. We need more people to go into the education sector, so we know exactly where it is. The new pharmaceutical industries that we've outlined that we're going to set up, we have clearly identified plans that when we can actually quantify. But if you say, oh, we are going to do infrastructure, and if you do infrastructure, it will lead to more jobs. That's not a plan. That's a wish list. You have to tell me what in infrastructure. How many roads are you going to build? How many schools are you going to build? How many clinics are you going to build? And how many people are they going to employ? So
Now, he challenged Ghanaians to select the next government based on a political party's performance.
Words are cheap, and it's always about record and your performance. If you had 8 years, and at the end of your 8 years, we saw an economy racing to crash, and we've come in, and after 1 year, just 1 year of fiscal consolidation and reforms, we've turned that around, and in 1 year, GDP growth jumped from the declining 3.6% to 8.1%. The next year it was 6.3%. The next year it was 6.8%. An average of 7%. To the extent that even the World Bank and the IMF said that Ghana was one of the fastest growing economies in the world because of those 3 years of growth. When in 2016 we saw a decline. And so people ask, okay, so what did you do that brought about the decline? What are you going to do now? Because it's the same story. You know, and we've heard the presidential candidate say that he's come to correct the mistakes that he made. So obviously, I even acknowledge that they made mistakes. Now, this is not a trial and error thing. If you made mistakes, then we are not waiting for you to come and try again. When under your watch, we saw the economy decline, jobs were lost, decimated our industry. We've come back, we've put in new policies to create industrial growth. We've come back, we are also looking at agriculture. And for us, you see, if you look at the NDC's plan, and I listened to the whole budget, I was just wondering, so what is the real oomph in this budget that will get me excited? Unfortunately, I didn't see any.
But that comes as no surprise, Mr. Grant, that
really?
You would not be excited by this.
Oh, no. To be honest with you.
Now, still in politics, the new Patriotic Party NPP says the December elections will be won on the projects delivered to the people in the various communities. Nkranza South Constituency Chairman of the party, Charles Osueje, says they will also achieve victory with their solid united front. He says the NDC would have no chance in the upcoming elections as the people are encouraged by the NPP's many social intervention policies. He spoke to JoyNews during the inauguration of a 36-member campaign team tasked to retain the seat for the NPP in the Nkranza South constituency in the Bono East region.
Since 2004, the Nkranza South constituency seat has been won by the NPP, except 2012, when the NDC's Emmanuel Kwadwo Agyekum won with a margin of 5,002 votes. But in 2016, the NPP regained their lost seat by a narrow margin of 985 votes. Speaking to JoyNews during the inauguration of a 36-member campaign team for the NPP in Nkranza South constituency ahead of the 2020 elections, the incumbent and parliamentary candidate Charles Konadu Yiadom is of the strong conviction of retaining his seat based on the volume of work done.
In the first place, my relationship with those people in the settler communities, I believe strongly I'm going to win. I've prepared equally. Every community, I know the challenges confronted confronting them. I know their needs and aspirations. I've prepared towards it. And I know opinion leaders, what they need, and I've prepared towards it, and I believe strongly we are going to win. Aside the policies that His Excellency the President have formulated and in the area of free SHS, the implementation is successful and we want to maintain it. And for that matter, I am fighting the tooth and nail in order to consolidate the win over here, both the presidential and parliamentary.
Constituency and campaign team chairman Clement Owusu Ejei said their newfound unity gives them hope of victory for the party in the December elections.
We had a very solid unity among ourselves as a party. This was what was mixed. But today, fortunately, if you mean to have known our campaign team, I'm very sure our members in the other side will really be fumbling. There is no way the NDC is going to have a chance. Now, this campaign is going to be won based on the projects that our Member of Parliament have initiated, one of which is the mini markets that have just scattered around and across the constituency. One at Brahoho, Kuma, Donkron Kwanta, the ICT center at Donkron Kwanta. And then once again, you go to Bonsu, Beposo, Asonkwa, the road that he's constructing, doing all the bridges and the other stuff. Those people have gotten the encouragement. So we're going to win. In fact, our friends at the opposition will see this team and definitely they will know that we are just moving to the next level, that is to 2021. Charles Kwadu Yadom is going back to Parliament, and Anado Dankwa Akufo-Addo is going to win in Kranza South.
NPP Bono East Regional Chairman Thomas Eduapia, during the inauguration, advised party members against the voting of skirts and blouse.
Policies are Papa Wediaban, and yet divided front, and you never call 2020 elections. You can lose the presidential and that of the parliamentary. Let us be focused. Let us be united. Let us be committed in the cause, in the delivering of this constituency to His Excellency the President. And we cannot afford to lose this election 2020.
And Kranza South Municipal Chief Executive Dinah Atakisiwa, who is a member of the campaign team, supported the team with 3 motorcycles. For Joy News, Precious Semevo and Kranza.
Stay with us for the latest on elections over the next 90 days till December 7. To other issues now, and the civil society organizations are calling for a national dialogue into the controversial Ejapa royalties deal. At a news conference on the development so far, Executive Director for the African Center for Energy Policy, Ben Boache, intimated the deal in its current state will only benefit a few investors.
It's about starting 25 years. And also the contract allows extension of those concessions. So if, for example, you extend Newmont's concession after the expiration of their lease, automatically that is also extended. So those are the clarities that you would want to find with the kind of conversation we want to have with government to clarify those specifics. But clearly, you can interpret that to mean that they've been given the royalties as long as the companies continue to produce on those concessions.
Now let's go to Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, who was at that news conference for Joy News. Now, Joe, we understand the CSOs are accusing government of massaging the figures. Right, Joseph, can you hear me?
Hello, Daniel, I can hear you.
Great. What's this allegation that the CSOs are making that government is massaging the figures?
Well, the reference is actually to the data, not the figures in question. So, for example, they're pointing to a situation where when the CSOs met with the finance minister, they say that there was a presentation that was done to them when they actually met the finance minister. They requested for copies of the slides as far as those presentations are concerned. When the slides were sent to them, they had some specific areas of interest that they wanted. They realized that those specific slides had been omitted from the presentation that was given to them. Not just that, they say when they asked government for details on how much the nation is earning from the various gold royalties. In the 2019 year, for example, government ended up giving them only a half-year figures instead of full-year figures. And they say this is important because in determining the value of a Japan, which government is currently pegging at $1 billion, there would have to be a foreknowledge of how much the nation earns from the royalties every year. They have been insisting that it's around $2 million. Government says it's around $150 million. And so they don't see why those details should have been missing in those specific presentations.
Joseph, you would have to restate those figures again for me. You said the CSOs say it's how much per year?
So the CSOs say the nation earns around $200 million a year when it comes to what the country earns from gold mineral royalties. They pointing to previous government communication, and even when the presentation was done to them, Inuit government is pegging it at $150 million. And they make the point that before coming to a firm conclusion on how much the Japan firm itself will be worth, you need to have those specific details, which is why the CSOs say they are surprised that even when government was doing the presentation to them and giving them figures on how much the nation earned from the gold royalties last year, it was just the 2019 half-year figure instead of the full 2019 figure. Essentially, they've been asking 5 specific questions that they insist remain unanswered despite the engagement and government efforts to explain all the issues, including why the firm is still going into a tax haven area.
Now, help us understand this. Government invited the CSOs for consultation on this. The CSOs still don't have their questions answered. Why don't they just go back to government? Why are they asking for a national dialogue?
So they think that this is something that can best be settled when we have the entire nation helping with the conversation and actually getting themselves involved. But more importantly, as to why they are out there in the media raising the concern, they think that the Minister of Finance position, by announcing that they are going ahead with the deal, even though he says he's going to consult, it doesn't very much reflect a good faith in terms of how he would want to discuss issues with them. And so they think that position that the minister has taken is completely out of place, and that's why they are restating their demand that the whole arrangement should be suspended fully before the conversations continue going forward.
So pardon me, Joseph, this is in specific reference to that interview on Saturday on Newsfile, is it not?
So this is actually in reference to the media briefing that the finance minister actually addressed, and also the interview he did on Newsfile, and previous statements that the Ministry of Finance has actually issued, including the statement they issued after meeting the CSOs, indicating that the deal is going on.
Joseph, thank you very much. We would, of course, need to examine these issues a bit further in later bulletins. You're still live on JoyNews today with me, Daniel Daz. Now, the Ghana Health Service is embarking on a polio vaccination exercise in 8 selected regions across the country, including the Greater Accra and Ashanti regions. The service says although 8 regions are now polio-free, as many as 8 others have worrying statistics, even after Africa was declared free from wild polio by the Africa Regional Certification Commission some weeks ago. National Manager of the Extended Program on Immunization as the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Kwame Amponsa Achiano, says the vaccination program, which starts on Thursday, will be targeting children under 5.
At the advent of the eradication program, we had a lot of paralysis. Our country was part of the endemic countries. Endemic countries in the whole world were more than 125. With gradual progress over the past so many years, we have achieved a lot, including the fact that Ghana has been polio-free since 2015. In fact, we were polio-free, wild polio-free in 2007. Then, unfortunately, we had an outbreak, and we had an outbreak in 2008, and we had to get recertified. And in 2015, we did that. So for 5 years, we've been certified. And thank God, just last month, on the 25th of August, Africa was certified wild polio-free. That does not mean that polio has disappeared. It is still around, because one polio case anywhere is a polio case everywhere. And we have 2 countries that are endemic. Again, we've been challenged with the non-wild type, which we call the circulating vaccine-derived polio, for which we are fighting now. As part of the outbreak response, we've done a lot of polio campaigns, but we need to complete that. So come Thursday to Sunday, which is 10th to 13th September, we're doing a polio campaign for children under 5 years.
Good afternoon, welcome to Showbiz here on JoyNews. And our spokesperson on creative arts with regards to the NDC's Elections 2020 Manifesto, Rex Omar, has given a general overview of the People's Manifesto launched by the NDC Monday. Rex Omar says this manifesto is a good one, addressing all the concerns of the creative arts sector, starting with creating a separate ministry for the arts.
Very major thing that changes the game is the standalone ministry for creatives and digital economy. This is to say the creative economy is going to be decoupled from the Ministry of Tourism so that it becomes a standalone ministry that will take care of the creative industry. I mean, when people talk about creative industry in Ghana, we think it's only music and film. No, it is very big. You're talking about fashion, you're talking about writing, you're talking about painting, you're talking about photography, you're talking about sculpture, you're talking about textiles, software development, plant breeding, weaving. It's a whole lot. So this industry must be taken care of in terms of preparing our creatives to be able to create jobs for the youth. For example, right now, as we have the FTA coming, a huge market in Africa, 800 million size of a market. We have the headquarters in Accra. Are we just going to be happy sitting down, just having the headquarters? How are we going to prepare our creatives to create cultural products to be able to export in terms of our fashion, in terms of our movies, in terms of our music, in terms of sculpture, anything that is exportable? That is why it is very important that we have this standalone ministry to help to detail these things. For example, we're going to also pass the broadcasting bill so as to be able to help our creatives to create these soap operas from within our culture, to distribute to our broadcasting stations, and to also export some.
Meanwhile, Rex Omar says they have plans to make these promises achievable.
I mean, all these things, the manifesto committee thought about all these things. I mean, our finance team is a crack team. We know our debt ratio to GDP, that we know that as a country we've overborrowed. So our finance team, they are sharp people, and they've thought out plans to be able to raise funding to do all these things. Then most importantly, you see, we are in COVID. Yeah. COVID has taught us that we have to be self-reliance. So everything that our manifesto is talking about is centered on job creation and centered on empowering Ghanaians to own the controlling heights of our economy. So our manifesto is saying that there's a policy in it called Big Push, and it's for infrastructural development and everything. And then it is clear that all people who are going to work within this policy must be Ghanaian registered companies in Ghana, people who pay taxes to Ghana. So it is Ghanaian contractors. So everything that we're doing in relation to the creative arts is the same. We are going to empower our filmmakers, our fashion, our musicians, our sculptors, or whatever, so as to be able to create products that will sell to Ghanaians and also export.
That'll be all for Showbiz here on JoyNews today. My name is Becky.
And this is where we wrap up on this bulletin of JoyNews today. My name is Daniel Daze. Thank you very much for joining us. Up next is the Marketplace.